Imagine this. You're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying a conversation from 5 years ago. Why did I say that? Did they think I was stupid? Or maybe you're worrying about a future that hasn't even happened yet? What if I fail? What if things don't work out? No matter how hard you try, your mind won't stop running in circles. Sound familiar? You're not alone. Overthinking is a silent killer of happiness. It keeps us trapped in imaginary problems, steals our peace, and makes us anxious over things beyond our control. And yet, we all do it. But what if I told you that the solution to overthinking has been around for over 2,500 years? Buddhism teaches that the mind is like a restless monkey, constantly jumping from one thought to another. Left untrained, it leads to suffering. But with the right approach, you can silence the noise, regain control, and find a deep, unshakable peace. In this video, we'll explore why overthinking destroys happiness and, more importantly, how to break free from it using Buddhist wisdom. Stick with me until the end because I'll also share simple, powerful techniques that you can start using today. Let's begin. Overthinking isn't just thinking too much. It's a mental trap. It's that endless loop of thoughts that lead nowhere, replaying past mistakes or fearing future problems that don't even exist. It's like a hamster running on a wheel, exhausting but getting you nowhere. But let's be clear, thinking itself isn't bad. There's a difference between productive reflection and harmful rumination. Productive thinking helps us solve problems, make decisions, and learn from mistakes. Overthinking, on the other hand, keeps us stuck, rehashing the same thoughts without finding a solution. It creates stress, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. Buddhism describes this as dukkha, the suffering caused by attachment to thoughts. The more we cling to our thoughts, the more they control us. Imagine you're holding a rope, and someone on the other end is pulling. The tighter you grip, the more it burns your hands. But if you simply let go, the pain disappears. Overthinking works the same way. The suffering isn't in the thoughts themselves, but in our resistance to them. Science backs this up. Studies show that overthinking triggers the body's stress response, releasing cortisol, increasing anxiety, and even leading to insomnia. It tricks your brain into believing there's an actual threat, even when there isn't. That's why a simple thought can spiral into a full-blown panic. But here's the truth. Thoughts are just thoughts. They are not reality. The problem isn't that we have negative thoughts, it's that we believe them, engage with them, and let them define us. The good news? Buddhism offers a way out. By understanding the nature of thoughts, we can break free from overthinking and reclaim our happiness. Now, let's dive deeper into the Buddhist perspective on overthinking and what it teaches us about taming the restless mind. Buddhism teaches that our thoughts are like illusions, temporary, fleeting, and ever-changing. Just as clouds pass through the sky without leaving a permanent mark, our thoughts arise and disappear. But when we overthink, we forget this impermanence. We cling to our worries, regrets, and fears as if they define us, creating unnecessary suffering. One of the core Buddhist teachings that directly addresses overthinking is the concept of anicca, or impermanence. Everything in life, our experiences, emotions, and even our thoughts, is in a constant state of flux. No thought, no matter how distressing, lasts forever. But when we attach ourselves to thoughts, treating them as absolute truths, we create suffering. Instead of letting thoughts pass naturally, we hold on to them, analyzing them endlessly. This attachment traps us in cycles of doubt, regret, and anxiety. Buddhism offers a path to escape this mental turmoil, the middle way. The middle way is a balanced approach to life, avoiding both extremes of indulgence and excessive control. When it comes to overthinking, this means finding harmony between action and letting go. We don't ignore our thoughts or suppress them, but we also don't let them take over our lives. Instead, we observe them with awareness, accepting their temporary nature. This mindset frees us from unnecessary suffering. A well-known Buddhist story illustrates this idea beautifully. There was once a monk who struggled with relentless overthinking. Even in meditation, his mind was filled with worries about whether he was making progress, whether he would ever attain enlightenment, and whether he was good enough. His teacher noticed his distress and gave him a simple task. "Go to the river and bring me a bowl of still water." The monk eagerly went to the river, but as he scooped up the water, ripples and waves disturbed its surface. He waited, but his impatience only made the water more unsettled. Frustrated, he returned to his teacher and admitted his failure. The teacher smiled and said, "The more you try to force the water to be still, the more you disturb it. But if you set the bowl down and leave it undisturbed, the water will settle on its own. Your mind is the same." This was a revelation to the monk. He realized that his struggle against overthinking was what kept him trapped in it. Instead of fighting his thoughts or analyzing them endlessly, he learned to observe them with detachment. With time and practice, his mind became still, like the undisturbed water in the bowl. This story holds a powerful lesson for all of us. When we try too hard to control our thoughts, we only stir up more mental chaos. But if we take a step back and observe them without judgment, they settle on their own. Buddhism teaches that overthinking is not defeated by more thinking. It is overcome by awareness, acceptance, and letting go. Overthinking is one of the greatest barriers to happiness because it pulls us away from the only place where true peace can be found, the present moment. Buddhism teaches that the present moment is all we ever truly have, yet our minds constantly drag us into the illusions of the past and future. Instead of fully experiencing life as it unfolds, we get lost in worries about what might happen or regrets about what already has. This mental habit creates suffering because it disconnects us from reality and replaces it with a world of endless what-ifs and should-haves. Imagine walking through a beautiful garden. The flowers are in bloom, the breeze is gentle, and the sun is warm on your skin. But instead of enjoying the moment, your mind is elsewhere, worrying about a mistake you made last week or stressing about an uncertain future. The garden is still there, full of beauty and peace, but you are not truly present to experience it. This is the tragedy of overthinking. It replaces reality with mental noise and takes away the simple joys that are always available to us. One of the most destructive aspects of overthinking is how it creates imaginary problems. The human mind has an incredible ability to invent fears and amplify uncertainties. We take a small concern and turn it into a catastrophe. We replay negative experiences over and over, making them seem bigger and more painful than they actually were. In Buddhism, this is known as the second arrow of suffering. The first arrow is the actual event, the pain, the mistake, the difficulty. But the second arrow is the suffering we create by obsessing over it, reliving it, and adding unnecessary worry to it. The second arrow is self-inflicted, yet most people unknowingly keep shooting themselves with it. A powerful Buddhist analogy illustrates this point. Holding on to thoughts is like holding a burning coal, hoping it won't burn you. When we refuse to let go of harmful thoughts, we are the ones who suffer. The longer we hold on to negative thinking, the more damage it does. We think we are solving a problem by analyzing it endlessly, but in reality, we are just prolonging our own suffering. Happiness is not found by holding on to every thought. It is found by learning to let go. Another major cause of overthinking is ego attachment. The ego thrives on identity, opinions, and control. It constantly worries about how others perceive us, whether we are making the right choices, and whether we are achieving enough. When the ego is in charge, we become obsessed with outcomes, always fearing failure and judgment. Overthinking is often fueled by this need to protect and reinforce our sense of self. We overanalyze conversations, dwell on criticism, and construct mental scenarios where we win, prove ourselves right, or avoid embarrassment. But in reality, this attachment to our ego only leads to suffering. The more we cling to a fixed identity, the more fragile and anxious we become. Buddhism teaches that true peace comes from letting go of the illusion of control. We cannot predict the future, and we cannot change the past. The only thing we can truly influence is how we respond in the present moment. When we stop overthinking and start accepting life as it comes, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. This is why Buddhist monks emphasize mindfulness, not as a trendy practice, but as a way to break free from the mental prison of overthinking. There is also a great paradox in overthinking. The more you think about happiness, the further you push it away. When people constantly analyze whether they are happy, they create a mental gap between themselves and the experience of joy. They measure, compare, and question, which makes genuine happiness feel unattainable. True happiness is not something to be overanalyzed. It is something to be lived. Imagine a child playing in a park, completely absorbed in the moment. They are not thinking about whether they are happy. They simply are. But if you interrupt the child and ask, "Are you happy right now?" you take them out of the experience and into analysis. Suddenly, they might start questioning, "Am I really happy? Could I be happier?" In that moment, joy is no longer something they feel. It becomes something they think about. This is what overthinking does to our happiness. It turns something natural and spontaneous into something calculated and elusive. Buddhism teaches that happiness is not something to be pursued with thought. It is something to be experienced by being fully present. The less we analyze it, the more we actually feel it. In the end, overcoming overthinking is not about suppressing thoughts or forcing the mind to be silent. It is about understanding the nature of thoughts and learning to detach from them. Just as the monk in the earlier story discovered, the more we try to control the mind, the more restless it becomes. But when we simply observe our thoughts without attachment, they lose their power over us. The key to happiness is not found in thinking more. It is found in thinking less. By embracing mindfulness, letting go of ego attachment, and accepting the impermanence of thoughts, we can free ourselves from the mental traps that steal our joy. Overthinking destroys happiness because it keeps us trapped in illusions. But the moment we step back, breathe, and return to the present, we discover that happiness was always there, waiting for us to notice it. Buddhism offers profound yet practical solutions for overcoming overthinking and finding inner peace. Instead of trying to suppress or control thoughts, Buddhist practices teach us to observe them, detach from them, and ultimately free ourselves from their grip. These methods have been used for thousands of years by monks, sages, and practitioners who sought liberation from the restless mind. By incorporating these techniques into our daily lives, we can gradually train our minds to be calm, present, and resilient in the face of uncertainty. One of the most effective ways to overcome overthinking is through Vipassana meditation, a practice of deep mindfulness. In this technique, you sit quietly and simply observe your thoughts without reacting to them. You don't try to change them, judge them, or follow them. You just witness them as if they were clouds passing in the sky. This practice helps create a sense of detachment from thoughts. Normally, when we have a negative or anxious thought, we identify with it completely. If a thought says, "I am not good enough," we believe it and start spiraling into self-doubt. But in Vipassana, we realize that thoughts are just fleeting mental events. They come and go, and they do not define us. The more we practice this, the less power overthinking has over us. Another powerful Buddhist practice to overcome overthinking is anapanasati, or mindful breathing. This method involves focusing your attention on the natural rhythm of your breath. Each inhale and exhale becomes an anchor to the present moment, pulling your awareness away from the endless chatter of the mind. When we overthink, our breath often becomes shallow and irregular, triggering the body's stress response. Deep, conscious breathing reverses this process by calming the nervous system and bringing us back to a state of peace. One simple practice is the 4-7-8 breathing method. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, and exhale for 8 seconds. This not only slows the mind, but also teaches us that we can always return to the breath as a refuge from mental chaos. In Zen Buddhism, there is a concept called Wu Wei, which means effortless action or going with the flow. This principle teaches that peace comes not from controlling thoughts, but from allowing them to pass naturally. Instead of fighting or suppressing overthinking, we simply let it be. Imagine a river flowing smoothly. If you try to grab the water and hold on to it, it slips through your fingers. But if you let it flow naturally, it finds its own path. Thoughts work the same way. When we resist them, they become stronger. But when we simply observe and let them pass, they lose their power over us. A simple way to practice Wu Wei is to sit quietly and visualize your thoughts as leaves floating down a stream. Instead of grabbing them, just watch them drift away. This exercise trains the mind to let go of overthinking without force or frustration. A major reason why overthinking causes suffering is that we attach our identity to our thoughts. If we think, "I am a failure," we believe that thought defines us. Buddhism, however, teaches the concept of anatta, or not self. This means that our thoughts are not who we truly are. They're just mental formations that arise and fade away. When we realize this, we no longer need to take every thought so seriously. Instead of saying, "I am anxious," we can say, "Anxiety is present." Instead of thinking, "I am not good enough," we can say, "A thought of self-doubt has appeared." This small shift in language creates a huge shift in perspective. It reminds us that thoughts are temporary visitors, not absolute truths. One way to practice detachment is to name your thoughts as they arise. For example, if you notice yourself worrying, simply say, "Worrying is happening." If you find yourself caught in regret, say, "Regret is present." This creates space between you and your thoughts, weakening their grip on your mind. The more we practice this, the easier it becomes to see thoughts for what they are, just passing mental events, not reflections of reality. Zen Buddhism emphasizes the beauty of simplicity and presence. One of the best ways to quiet an overactive mind is to fully engage in whatever you are doing. Whether it's washing dishes, drinking tea, or walking, do it with complete attention. Instead of overanalyzing a conversation from yesterday or worrying about tomorrow, immerse yourself in the now. Feel the warmth of the water on your hands as you wash the dishes. Notice the aroma of the tea as you sip it. Hear the crunch of leaves beneath your feet as you walk. This practice, known as meditative living, pulls you out of your thoughts and into the richness of direct experience. A famous Zen saying captures this idea perfectly. When eating, eat. When walking, walk. It sounds simple, but in practice, it is deeply transformative. The more you train yourself to be fully present, the less room there is for overthinking. Overthinking is often fueled by self-criticism and fear. We dwell on past mistakes, worry about how others perceive us, and judge ourselves harshly. To counteract this, Buddhism teaches metta meditation, or loving-kindness meditation. This practice involves silently repeating phrases of compassion, first to yourself and then to others. A simple version of metta meditation goes like this: May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I be peaceful. May I be kind to myself. By practicing this daily, we replace negative self-talk with self-compassion. Instead of getting trapped in cycles of self-judgment, we cultivate an inner voice that is gentle, patient, and loving. This shift not only reduces overthinking, but also transforms how we relate to ourselves and others. To truly overcome overthinking, we must integrate these Buddhist techniques into our daily lives. At work, when your mind starts racing with stress or self-doubt, pause and take 3 deep breaths. Ground yourself in the present task instead of worrying about future outcomes. In relationships, instead of replaying past conversations or fearing judgment, practice metta meditation. Approach interactions with kindness and presence rather than overanalysis. In decision-making, when faced with uncertainty, remember Wu Wei. Trust the natural flow of life instead of forcing perfect answers. Accept that not all questions have immediate solutions. Before sleep, if your mind is restless at night, practice anapanasati breathing or listen to a guided vipassana meditation. This helps calm the mind and release unnecessary thoughts. Overcoming overthinking is not about stopping thoughts. It's about changing your relationship with them. By practicing mindfulness, detachment, and loving kindness, we can free ourselves from the endless loops of the mind and return to a state of peace. The mind will always generate thoughts, but we have the power to decide whether to get lost in them or simply let them pass. And when we learn to let go, we discover that happiness was never something to be found in thoughts. It was always here, waiting for us in the present moment. The power of present awareness is one of the most profound antidotes to overthinking. When we become fully engaged in the present moment, the mind has no space to dwell on the past or anxiously anticipate the future. Most of our mental suffering arises from being trapped in thoughts about what was or what might be, rather than embracing what is. In Buddhism, mindfulness is not just a practice, it is a way of being. It teaches us that life is happening now, and true peace can only be found in the present moment. A beautiful analogy for present awareness comes from the Zen tea ceremony. In this ancient tradition, every action, boiling water, preparing the tea, pouring it, and drinking, is done with full attention. The practitioner does not rush or multitask. They do not allow the mind to wander to worries or distractions. Instead, they are completely immersed in the experience, savoring every detail. This ceremony is a reminder that even the simplest moments can become a form of meditation if we are truly present. The way we do anything can be an opportunity for mindfulness, whether it's drinking tea, eating a meal, or walking down the street. One of the main reasons we overthink is our desire for certainty. We analyze situations from every possible angle, trying to predict outcomes and control the future. But Buddhism teaches us that life is inherently uncertain. Clinging to the need for control only leads to frustration and stress. Instead of resisting uncertainty, we can learn to embrace it. When we stop trying to predict everything, we open ourselves to the flow of life, allowing events to unfold naturally, just like a river that does not force its direction but moves effortlessly with the landscape. We too can learn to navigate life with grace rather than resistance. Letting go of overthinking is not about ignoring problems or avoiding responsibility. It is about trusting that clarity comes not from excessive thinking, but from inner stillness. When we release attachment to endless analysis, we create space for intuition and wisdom to arise naturally. The mind becomes clear, like a still pond reflecting the sky. In that state of calm, we can make better decisions, experience deeper happiness, and appreciate life as it is, without the burden of unnecessary thought. In the end, happiness is not found in perfect answers or complete control. It is found in being fully present. By immersing ourselves in the now, embracing uncertainty, and letting go of mental struggle, we free ourselves from the cycle of overthinking. True peace is not something to be achieved in the future. It exists right here, in this very moment, waiting for us to notice it. Overthinking is one of the greatest obstacles to happiness. It keeps us trapped in an endless cycle of worry, doubt, and regret, preventing us from truly experiencing life as it is. But, as we've explored, the Buddhist perspective offers a powerful solution: the practice of mindfulness, letting go, and embracing the present moment. When we stop clinging to thoughts, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. Happiness is not something to be found in overanalyzing the past or controlling the future. It exists only here and now. Buddhism teaches us that thoughts are like passing clouds in the sky. They come and go, but they do not define us. The more we cling to them, the more we suffer. But when we train our minds to observe them without attachment, we cultivate inner peace. As the Buddha wisely said, "Train your mind to let go, and happiness will naturally arise." This is the essence of overcoming overthinking. By practicing mindfulness, focusing on the breath, and embracing the impermanence of life, we learn to navigate our thoughts rather than be controlled by them. Now, I invite you to put this wisdom into action. Try practicing mindfulness for just 1 week. Each day, take a few moments to simply observe your thoughts without judgment. Focus on your breath, immerse yourself in the present moment, and whenever you catch yourself overthinking, gently bring your attention back. See how this small shift in awareness can transform your perspective and bring a sense of peace into your daily life. And once you've tried it, share your experience in the comments. I'd love to hear how this practice impacts you. If you found value in this, don't forget to subscribe for more insights on mindful living. By learning to master our minds, we take control of our happiness and create a life of true inner peace. Until next time, stay present, stay mindful, and remember, happiness is found in letting go.